And I will hand it over to our hosts, Bukola and Justice. And Bukola, if you would like me to share the screen with the introductory presentation, I can do that for you.
Okay, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, just give me a minute.
Okay, good afternoon. It's afternoon over here in Nigeria, and I believe we are in different we are in different weather across different countries that we are joining this session today. And I want to officially welcome you all to another interesting session of the Let's Connect Learning Clinic, where we get to learn from experienced sharers and also like take away key things that could really help us improve our work as program organizers and as volunteers. And today we have a very special guest, and we will be talking about motivating and retaining volunteers. And as we all know, this has really been a topic that has really called for concern, especially among program organizers, athletes, and even volunteers as well, because oftentimes we get to organize programs, we get to organize trainings, and after the first, let's say, the first week, getting to sustain these volunteers all sometimes become a problem. And it's a good thing that we have a wiki expert and a staff of the Wikimedia Foundation, and who will be talking about motivating and retaining volunteers. And our speaker for today is no other person than Asaf Bartov. I hope I got that last name correctly, and if I don't, please kindly pardon me. Yeah, and Asaf is the lead program officer from the community development department of the Wikimedia Foundation. And for most people who I had shared this session poster with, they have always said a lot about Asaf being the right person to really
like 1 hour
training volunteers. So today, speaker is our guest speaker, and he will be really talking extensively on how we can motivate and retain volunteers. And just like we all know, the purpose of the Learning Clinic is to get both learners and sharers from within the Wikimedia community to come together and gain new skills that could really help them advance their various activities and programs that they carry out within the Wikimedia community. And today I have with me co-host, my co-facilitator, Justice, and is also on this call. Justice, do you want to give a little introduction about yourself for those that are joining for the first time? Okay. It seems Justice is not on the call right now.
Oh no,
so
I'm here.
Okay, fine.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So hi everyone. My name is Justice. I'll be co-facilitating this learning clinic with Bukola. And I want to introduce you all to the Let's Connect culture. So Let's Connect is a peer learning program that is co-led by the Wikimedia Foundation and then the Wikimedia community. So it's a foundation community initiative. We are always here to learn from each other because it's peer learning. We are here to have a good time, and we want every member of the community to understand why they are part of the movement, learn as much as possible, and share among each other as much as possible as well.
Thank you,
So
Justice.
yeah, so today's learning outcome basically is going to be understanding why, how or best practices we can use to retain volunteers and also motivate them in our various communities. Also, participants will be able to learn from each other about what is working and not working for them towards engaging the various volunteers that they have in their communities as well. Yeah, so our agenda for today is going to be like this. Brief introduction, 10 minutes. It could be in the chat or if you want to say your name or where you're coming from. And then there will be a presentation by Asaf for 125 minutes. And then we'll take a Q&A, and then we'll do a very practical exercise at the end of the session. Yeah, so if you have any question, you can, the link to the Etherpad has been shared on the space, but then there's also, you can put in your question in the chat, and then I'll add it to the Etherpad for you if you don't have it. Yeah, so at this point, I'll move it back to Popular.
Okay, thank you, Justice, for taking us through the session program and like how the session is going to look like. And right about now, I would not be doing the talking, but we'll be passing over the virtual mic to Asaf to take it up from here. And over to you, Asaf.
Thank you very much. Are you seeing my slide now? Did I maximize it? Yes, okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you. So welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I hope the translation is working well. If I at some point get carried away and speak too fast, I trust you will stop me. I want to start with a very trivial statement. Wikimedia depends on volunteers. We all know this, right? This is obviously true and easy to understand. And now I want to advance to something that some people don't always think about, which is Wikimedia projects don't just depend on volunteers, but they depend on a steady influx of volunteers. That is a steady stream of new volunteers. And why is that? Because we also lose volunteers, right? People also stop contributing to the projects because of, you know, real life. People graduate, people have twins, all kinds of things happen that make them reprioritize and have less time to edit the wikis. And so even if we feel, oh, our community is doing great, we have lots of editors, etc., looking at the medium to long term, 2, 3, 5 years down the line, you will need new editors. And if you want editors in 5 years, you need to start working on them today. So this is the topic of our talk today, how to recruit and how to retain volunteers. And I want to start with a question to all of you. Is your wiki, your home community, gaining or losing active editors net, right? If we count how many active editors are joining versus how many active editors are lost or stop editing, is it a net positive or a net negative? My psychic powers tell me most of you don't know. Most of you don't really consult those statistics very often, but I encourage you, especially those of you from smaller communities, to take a look at these statistics because they can teach us a lot. You're welcome to write on the chat if you like, whether you, to the best of your knowledge, whether your community is net growing or declining or more or less plateaued. It would be interesting to see what you think. I have prepared some data to make the point. So here are graphs of the total number of active editors, that is people who made at least 5 edits per month in the last year from these 6 communities. And you can see that in these large wikis, the large language wikis, French, Spanish, Arabic, there is, with more or less fluctuations, there is kind of a plateau. There is more or less a static situation. There's no clear, diagonal of growth, nor very clear decline. There's maybe a bit of decline in Arabic here, but we see that the fluctuations are quite sharp. So it may just be a monthly thing. We can see English Wikipedia on the bottom row, also more or less plateaued. And of course, the scale here, note the scale, right? In English Wikipedia is not the same as French Wikipedia, right? We're talking about 38,000 editors versus about 5,500 editors in French, for example. The Ukrainian Wikipedia shows an interesting pattern. You can see that it is growing. If you look at the left side of the graph versus the right side of the graph, it is clearly growing. And there's a very sharp decline around March 2022. Some of you may have heard there's a war going on, and we can very clearly see the effects of the war that, of course, caused a lot of emergency situations and people moving, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a lot less editing, but then more editing for, socio-political reasons that we won't go into, but there's clear growth on the Ukrainian Wikipedia, actually. Likewise, a lot of fluctuations in Hindi, but on average, more or less plateaued. And here are some more examples from somewhat smaller wikis. In Hausa, we see clear growth. There's almost a doubling of active editors. We also see growth in Igbo, very significant growth. Even though there's been a dip at the beginning of 2023, there's growth again. And some other communities here can also be looked at. And I encourage you all to start using this if you haven't been yet, to just start paying attention to the graph of active editors in your community. Okay, so I hope I made the point that this is something to pay attention to. And of course, the biggest question to crack is, well, how can we attract volunteers, or how can we attract more volunteers than we are today? And this is the talk, this is the point where I teach you 3 magic tricks to attract volunteers. Wait, I'm being told there's actually no such thing as magic. So I cannot teach you magic tricks to attract volunteers. What I can teach you is how to work at attracting volunteers. It's not as fun as magic, but on the plus side, it actually works. These are some tried and true techniques to recruit new editors. So to start with, let's ask ourselves, where do volunteers come from? And the easiest way to approach this question is to ask ourselves, where did you come from? What motivates you? And we have 40, 50 people here. And again, my psychic powers tell me, not all of you have the same story. Not all of you are motivated by the same things. So let's take a minute and write on the chat very quickly, very briefly, what motivates you? Why are you editing Wikimedia projects? Why are you interested? You can write it on the chat. If you prefer, you can just unmute and speak it. So we're getting some answers, knowledge sharing, to bring interesting articles from English to my language, Spanish. I started editing as part of academic research, but then became passionate about Irish knowledge gaps. Potential for a member of the public to make a better decision for the future of humanity. For future readers to have knowledge of the past, knowledge equity. I'm learning something every day by writing on Wikipedia. Peace. So you can already see, right? I'm going to stop there, but you're welcome to keep on writing. We can already see that there's a whole bunch of different motivations, some of which probably did not occur to you when I asked this question. Maybe not all of you thought about peace, bringing about peace. Maybe not all of you thought about learning by editing Wikipedia, right? We think of it as sharing knowledge, but there's also a lot of learning that happens, etc. So I didn't know what you were going to say, so I prepared some motivations in the slides that I've heard in the past, but I think they are typical. Wanting to give access to information to my own language community, using my knowledge to benefit others, practicing my own skills through writing, saving the world, right? People who edit because they feel this can save the world, whether it's about the environment or wars or peace or whatever. Very importantly, pay attention to this last bullet. Being invited to contribute is what motivates some people. Remember that when you're looking to attract newbies, invite people to contribute. For some people, that would be the motivating factor, that someone invited them. Language pride is a big thing in languages that are less dominant, languages that are not colonial or imperial. Very often there is this idea that, wait, why does English have an article on this and my language does not? Or how come we have fewer articles than, you know, this neighboring language? That can really motivate people to contribute. I will tell you, for example, about an Indian contributor, I will not name him, who is from the Tamil community, a language spoken in South India, who told me, I would rather cut off my arm than write an article on English Wikipedia, right? He wants Tamil, the Tamil language, Tamil Wikipedia to grow. And his motivation is to resist the pressure by English on his community, right? And to sort of prove that everything is available and can be done in Tamil. That's a very different motivation from just sharing knowledge, for example, right? It's about the language, it's about the local culture, etc. Inspired by others' work, campaigns, right? Being part of a campaign. Most of you will have encountered campaigns like Art and Feminism, Gender Gap Work, Wiki Loves Monuments, Wiki Loves whatever, right? That can also motivate you to contribute. Some people talk about obsession, right? Oh, there are still red links on Wikipedia. I have to create the articles. Someone is wrong on the internet. A very famous piece of motivation. Someone being wrong on the internet is a powerful force. Some people feel responsibility to correct information on the internet, to create information about crucial things like health. Some people are really motivated by the fact that once they contribute, other people are building on their work, and that feels great. Seeing something that you have contributed become better is a tremendous motivator. Some people just find joy in kind of exercising skills competently. Some people literally say, you know what, it's just a habit by now. I'm just used to it and I keep contributing, etc., etc. So I just gave, I don't know, several dozen motivations, and there are others. My point is, different people will be motivated by different things, and all of these motivations can be usefully put into doing Wikimedia work. Okay, so there's all these people who could be motivated in all these different ways. How do we find these people? How do we actually bring them into the project? And here we come to perhaps the key message I want to tell you today, which is that there are three methods, three ways of accumulating volunteers, of getting more volunteers for your project. And one of them is the one you are used to and talk about a lot, which is doing outreach, right? Going out and training others, going out and trying to get people interested in the project. And I want to suggest to you that the other two ways are no less important. These three ways are, first of all, I want to point out to you that volunteers are coming to us all the time. And all we need to do is to drive away fewer volunteers. Because right now we're driving away a lot of volunteers, a lot of good faith volunteers, which we would like to retain, to keep on the project. What do I mean by volunteers are coming to us all the time? The greatest single recruiter of volunteers is not editing workshops, not WikiLoves, anything, but the wiki itself. The wiki site, Wikipedia, Wikisource, whatever it is, the wiki itself with its edit button that most people never see and never click. But some fraction of people does click the edit button. And of those people, many of them are immediately scared and go away. But some fraction will actually make an edit and save it. And some fraction of the people who made an edit and saved it are going to like it and continue and become editors. And that fraction of a fraction of a fraction is in fact responsible for most of the active editors in the world. Most of them did not start at an editing workshop, but rather encountered the wiki, used Wikipedia like everyone around the world, and just clicked the edit button and liked it. Now, of course, I mentioned this is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. We can increase that fraction. What if instead of retaining 0.5% of the people who click the edit button, we were able to retain 2% of the people who click the edit button, right? That would be tremendous change. And my point here is that these are people who are already interested in editing, right? These are not people from we met on the street and are trying to convince them to care and to be interested in contributing to the wiki. These are people who already click the edit button. They want to edit. Now, I add in parentheses here the good faith ones, right? Because there are, of course, vandals. There are, of course, promotional editors who do not care about free knowledge and only care about spamming the wiki. Those are people we do need to turn away. That's okay. But the good faith people who are trying to edit, we could drive fewer of them away, and that would be a huge improvement in our the count of our active editors in our community. Now, the second method to accumulate volunteers is outreach. That's the one we know, right? Doing workshops, going out there, finding people, and proactively suggesting to them, hey, come volunteer in Wikimedia. Here's why you might care. Here's how you do it, right? At events, etc. This is like I said, the relatively better known part. A lot of you are already doing outreach in some form. So I'm going to spend less time on that today, but I will have some remarks to say about it a little later. But the third way to increase your community size is to defend against burnout. In other words, to lose fewer volunteers, right? So the three ways are: make sure we retain more of the people who spontaneously want to edit, do outreach to actively look for new people who want to edit, and to lose fewer people, to make fewer people leave the projects. This is a key slide. I want you to remember this. I want you to look beyond outreach, beyond an automatic repetition of another workshop and another editathon, and remember that there are these other ways to attract volunteers. And now we're going to zoom in to these different ways. So how can we retain, keep more of these volunteers who are coming in anyway? I'm going to pause just briefly, take a look at the chat, make sure people can hear me. Yes? I'm not seeing concerns here. Okay. So how can we retain more newbies? Crucially, as I mentioned, not all newbies should be retained. Let's remember that. There are some people who are not here to help. They're here to damage the wiki. They're here to spam or to harass people on the wiki. And those people should not be retained. On the contrary, they should be discouraged and blocked and resisted. But the majority of people who come in do have good intentions, even if their actions are misguided, even if they violate copyright, for example, they probably mean to help. They want to contribute, and they could be helped in that. So I want to suggest to you that our current mechanisms for fighting vandals, for rejecting, harassing users, are kind of okay. We do eventually reject the people that need to be rejected. The problem is we also reject people who don't need to be rejected, right? We also drive away people who do want to edit, don't know how, aren't dealing well with the existing resources we have, etc. But I also want you to remember that the fact wikis are the site that anyone can edit, right? You've heard this before, right? The site anyone can edit. Anyone can edit it, but it doesn't mean everyone would want to. And it also doesn't mean that everyone who wants to will accept the rules, the norms that we have, right? Anyone can edit is correct, but there's a little asterisk, there's a little footnote. Anyone can edit on condition that they edit by the rules, right? This is the small print. And this is where some people get stuck, right? They want to edit, they want to contribute, but when they're told, wait, hang on, you cannot violate copyright, well, that's too much of a hassle now. This is something they resist, for example. They don't want to accept it. Well, if they don't want to accept it, they will not be able to contribute on Wikimedia wikis, right? That's an example, right? Copyright, obeying copyright, not plagiarizing, not violating copyright is a non-negotiable norm of the wiki projects. If you're not willing to accept it, you will not be able to contribute on the Wikimedia projects. So that's an example of someone who is motivated, wants to contribute, but is not willing to accommodate themselves or to accept our norms. So that's a potential clash. And the reason I'm emphasizing this so much is that I have observed many people feel that every newbie, every volunteer, we have to fight to keep them no matter what. And what I want you to give up is the no matter what part, right? Some people don't find our model something they can work with. It doesn't work for them. They refuse to be bound by our rules. That's okay. We need to part ways, right? We need to tell them, well, in that case, you know, contributing to Wikimedia is not for you. We don't have to keep fighting to somehow make it work if people are not willing to make the effort, if people are not willing to accept our norms. In other words, I'm telling you, we need to look for the people who are motivated and are willing to accept Wikimedia norms. Those are the people we need to fight to retain. It's not 100% of the people. It's not 100% of the newbies. And that's okay. Now, relatedly, not everyone is motivated. We've already seen there are different motivations, right? Not everyone wants to edit for the same reasons, and not everyone wants to write encyclopedic articles from start to finish, which is what we imagine when we talk about contributing to Wikipedia. Well, you come and you write an encyclopedic article with citations and sources and pictures, etc. That's one particular kind of activity, but there are many other ways actually to help Wikimedia, right? We know some of them, right? We know that you can contribute photos. We know that you can contribute pronunciation recordings in audio. We know that you can fix typos. You don't have to write new articles. You can fix typos. You can clarify explanations. You can create diagrams in scalable vector graphics. that very few people can do, right? If that's a skill you have, you can really help Wikimedia. But somehow when we do outreach, when we talk about Wikipedia, we usually imagine writing articles as though that's the only way to help Wikimedia, but it isn't. So I'm pointing this out because some of the newbies we will encounter, some of the people who come and express interest, won't want to write articles, but can be channeled, can be directed to other ways to help. And I encourage you to think about that and to remember to point these newbies to these other ways to help that they may not be aware of. I also think a very crucial thing to retain newbies, to keep them, is to help them deal with setbacks, with negative experiences that are part of integrating on the projects. They're part of dealing with Wikipedia, which is, after all, a complex system. It has a lot of rules. Some of the rules are surprising to some of us, right? Many people come, for example, from countries where copyright is not really a thing. It's not a law that people care about. It's not enforced by the state. And the fact that Wikimedia does insist on copyright is really difficult to accept. That's an example, right? I'm returning to the copyright example because it's easy, but that's a setback. That is some tension that people will deal with. And we, as the people receiving the newbies, can help them deal with it. In other words, much more important than teaching a newbie how to make a bold text and how to insert a photo, which are technical skills, it is much more important to give them the right attitudes, the psychological preparation for what it means to collaborate in our environment. And just to give one more example beyond copyright, people need to understand that the way this peer production knowledge creation works on Wikipedia is online, on Wiki, and is pseudonymous. You may not know the identity of the people criticizing your work or leaving comments on it or improving it. And again, in different cultures, there are different expectations around it. You may expect, for example, to be able to look a person in the eye, right, and argue about whether or not something is notable. And that's not available to you on Wikipedia. You may not get the chance to have a face-to-face conversation about the notability of the article you created. That can be frustrating if that's what you expect, right? If you expect, hey, we can work it out, come talk to me. And nobody will come talk to you. People will leave a comment on the talk page. People will refer to, policy point G7. And that's very impersonal, maybe alienating, and very frustrating. Again, this is something we often leave out of our trainings, but we can help newbies by really preparing them on how to deal with a possible setback, how to deal with your edit being reverted, or with an article being judged not notable. So these are all points that we lose newbies to, right? Each of these things causes us to lose newbies. Another big thing that gets newbies to stay is being appreciated. This is a universal about humans. Humans like being appreciated, and appreciation translates into motivation. And there are a number of ways to appreciate people. For example, you could identify some promising newbies on your project. Not just people who approached you, or not just people who came to your event. I'm literally talking about sort of fishing them out of the database. There are technical tools that can help you do this, and there are links here. You will get the slides later, and you can click those links. You can use the Quarry tool, for example, to show you editors from the last 3 months, for example, who have made substantive edits, right? Edits that are longer than whatever, 300 bytes or something, right? And that have not been reverted, right? This query can show you people who have been contributing the last 3 months and have not had their edits reverted. These are promising newbies, right? You could take the results of this query and go and appreciate them in person. Because one of the experiences some people feel is, hey, I joined, I edited, and nothing happened. Nobody even acknowledged my work. Nobody said anything, good or bad, about what I was doing, right? So again, the usual story we hear is, oh, my edit got reverted, people were not nice to me. That happens. But there's also the opposite of like no reaction whatsoever to my edits, which can also be frustrating to people. Each one of you using this query can take the responsibility for welcoming newbies who have just kind of quietly joined. Remember, people just joined using the edit button. They may never have encountered another Wikimedian face-to-face. You could identify them, show up on their talk page, and drop them a cookie or a message, right? And say, hey, thank you for this article. You're doing great. Here's a tip, or come to our next meetup. I said that appreciation is a universal. All humans like to be appreciated. So as long as you're appreciating newbies, you should also appreciate oldies, people who've been around for a long time, or people who help with technical things. I have found in my experience that a lot of times communities have, the tech person, or, the bot person, the script person, or the scalable vector graphics person. And people get so used to it that, oh yeah, we need a scalable vector graphics for something, this person will do it. Those people get taken for granted. But I guarantee you, the people would appreciate being appreciated every now and then. And you can also appreciate people off Wiki, depending on geography, depending on how close you are to each other and whether you know where people are. But you can appreciate people with merchandise, with shirts or sweets or things like that, of course. So zooming in, I remind you of the thank button, a very simple feature on the wiki. I hope you all know it. When you look at a page's history, right, there's a thank button next to every edit. And statistics show that people who get thanked tend to be more active. Because again, it's a simple way of having your work acknowledged. You don't have to make a big message. You don't have to use a graphic, just a single click thanking people. How many of you regularly use the thank button? You can, I don't know, use a thumbs up on the emotions thingy on Zoom, or you can write on the chat. I make it a point to try to thank someone every day, at least once. And I also have a habit in my home wiki, which is Hebrew Wikipedia. Whenever I look for something and I'm a little surprised, oh, we do have an article about this topic, or I'm surprised by how good an article is, I always look at the history. I look at who created the article or who, massively improved it, and I thank them. Even if this happened like, 15 years ago, I guarantee you it's an amazing feeling to suddenly get thanked for an article you don't even remember having written because you wrote it like 15 years ago. And suddenly someone says, hey, thank you for writing that 15 years ago. It's amazing. So you should all use the thank button. It's a super easy, super simple way to show appreciation. Again, not just to newbies. So do you know who are the top 10 thankers on your Wikipedia? Right? Who is giving the most wiki love using thanks on Wikipedia? Again, most of you don't. I have a link here that you can use later when you have the slides. It's a link to a query that will show you. You can just change, the language code so that it's working for your wiki, and you'll be able to see who are the top 10 thankers on your Wikipedia. These are the people really sharing the love. And relatedly, who are the top 10 most thanked people on your Wikipedia, right? Who are the people receiving the most appreciation on Wikipedia? Can also sort of reveal to you who are the people who are really appreciated, who are really helpful, kind, etc. And again, think about it. I can look at a Wikipedia whose language I don't speak, can't even read, and just using this query, I can identify some of the most helpful, kind Wikipedians on that wiki, but just by looking at who gets thanked. So I wanted to draw your attention to this, and I encourage you to use these queries. Other ways to show appreciation, you know them. You can leave little graphics like barn stars and medals and cookies and coffee and whatever. And I want to point out a little sociological fact about these barn stars or medals. The value of these things is proportional to how much the recipient respects the person who gave them the barn star, right? If I get a barn star from some person who has registered their account 2 days ago and immediately started giving out barn stars, it's not going to mean much to me. But if I get a barn star or a beer or a coffee or whatever virtually, right, from someone who I respect for many years, that means more, even though it's the same piece of graphic, right? In other words, it's a symbol, right? It's a symbol that says, I respect you, I thank you. And the value of this symbolic gesture, of course, depends on how much you respect the person who gave you the barn star. So if you, in your community, are one of the people who have been around for a long time, who have a big reputation, who are respected, your leaving a barn star or a medal or a coffee would mean a lot to people. And again, you should practice this. I never get tired of sharing the story from Ukrainian Wikipedia about Wikis Hushkshivke. That difficult Ukrainian word means condensed milk, like sweetened condensed milk in a can. And a Ukrainian Wikipedian many years ago just had the idea, hey, it would be nice to send a little treat to people who are contributing a lot to the Ukrainian Wikipedia. And he started sending once a month 2 prizes, one for the most active editor, the person who made the most edits that month, and one for the newbie who made the most edits that month. And he would just take a standard can of sweet condensed milk, wrap it with a little piece of paper that says Wikipedia, whatever, and send it by post. I mean, write to the person and say, hey, you are the most active newbie of this month. Would you like to receive it? If so, you know, give me your address. And he would literally send it by post to that person just as a treat. It's just a nice little act that really motivates people. People receive it. It's like a material, physical proof that their work is appreciated. And I will tell you a little secret. The first recipient of the newbie of the month condensed milk in this project was a Ukrainian and Wikipedia newbie called Natalia, who today is the chair of the board of the Wikimedia Foundation. So here's a success story of retaining a newbie through appreciation. To summarize, using these on-wiki appreciations is a zero-cost but high-value way to motivate our volunteers or to keep them motivated. And there are these off-wiki ways as well. Now, another important thing to do, especially in smaller communities, is to try to have recurring activities, regularly held activities that are low barrier. For example, a photo walk, right? Just a walk around some park or some museum or something, taking pictures and uploading to the commons. And then during the walk, you can kind of have a lightweight introduction to copyright or freedom of panorama or other things just during the walk. No commitment, no heavy requirements. And the benefit of having these regularly, let's say once a month, once a week, even once a quarter, is better than nothing. The benefit is that when you engage with someone, even, I don't know, on the bus, right? Someone sees your Wikipedia shirt and says, hey, well, how do I get involved with Wikipedia? In addition to whatever you're usually telling them, you can say, hey, you know, in a week, we have our next photo walk. You should join us, right? Just having this pre-scheduled, regularly happening thing, even online, right? Even an online Zoom meeting once a week or every other week that you can invite people to, kind of no commitment, no preparation, just show up, meet the people, helps to humanize the community. I've already mentioned that the purely online pseudonymous communication model is a challenge for some people and is an uncomfortable way of communicating for some people. Inviting them to a social hangout with real faces and real names can really help, even though the actual work on Wiki will still be in that pseudonymous, mostly text way, right? They will have already met and made contact with some human faces, and that can mean a lot for people. So if your community in your city, in your country, doesn't at the moment have some regularly scheduled, low barrier, low commitment activity, I encourage you to create it. Even if it's literally just a monthly call on Zoom, everybody's welcome. And I also encourage you to have some content for the call. I mean, scheduled programmatic content. So it's great to socialize and just chat. But if it's only that, some people will go, it's just chatting. I've attended the previous two. No need to attend this one. Or you might find yourself just silently staring at each other, right? And nobody having anything in particular to say. So it's good to have socializing, but also a semi-structured part to these meetings. It can be 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? It can be someone introducing a tool, right? Hey, folks, did you know about this script or that tool? It can be someone demonstrating a technique. It can be someone sharing news from the wiki world. Hey, have you heard that, I don't know, in Macedonia, they had this project? Just a little piece of content beyond the social interaction, again, would make it easier for people to just show up and listen first and get to know each other without having to immediately feel comfortable socializing. Okay. So I mentioned that different people have different motivations. They have different capacities, right? Some people have certain skills and others don't. We need to keep an open mind on how we harness, how we put to use the goodwill that people have, but we cannot compromise on our principles. I already mentioned the copyright example. That's a non-negotiable. We cannot compromise on it. We also can't compromise, for example, on safety and universal code of conduct, right? If someone has a very offensive agenda and insists on promoting this offensive agenda that hurts people on the wiki, we cannot compromise on that. But if someone doesn't want to write articles, but instead wants to correct typos or record pronunciations, that's great. And we shouldn't force people to edit Wikipedia. That's not the only way to integrate. People who don't want to edit can still be great allies, can still help our projects. They can organize events, they can help draft press releases. They can, lawyers, for example, can help with legal work without editing the wiki, as long as they are willing to understand the wiki, understand what we do, understand our principles, they can work with the people who are editors, and together the group has those additional skills. In other words, you don't have to turn everyone into editors, and you should recruit and gather around you a lot of people with goodwill who may occasionally contribute, right? For example, a professional translator may occasionally agree to translate an article, even if they don't become a regular editor. A professional graphic designer can occasionally help you design your, communications or your announcements. A journalist or someone with professional comm skills can help you in communicating your successes, et cetera, et cetera. They don't all have to be editors. Okay. At this point, my psychic powers that I've already mentioned are telling me, excuse me, that all this talk about matching volunteer interests is frustrating to you because you are saying, yes, matching interests, but I need volunteers for this project. That's what I'm looking for. So I sympathize. Maybe you want to do an education program or a GLAM partnership, right? A content sharing partnership with a museum, for example. And that's what you're looking for volunteers for. So someone showing up and saying, hey, I can help you draft a press release, maybe isn't helping you right now. So I sympathize with it. But again, people will come with their own motivations. Not everybody will want to work on your education program or on your GLAM partnership. So here's how you can try to recruit volunteers for X, for the project that you, the organizer, are trying to get off the ground. First of all, communicate it. describe what you need on Wiki. Don't just assume everybody knows what is needed for an education program or a GLAM partnership. Literally write, I need people willing to do this and to commit this much time and who have these skills, right? Also describe why you want to do X. Again, it may be obvious to you, the value of an education program, the value of a photo walk, but you need to describe it because it may not be obvious to everyone else. So literally say, I'm looking for volunteers to do this, and here's what I need from those volunteers, and here's why it matters, because if we do this, then whatever, we get 5,000 high quality images from this museum, or we recruit newbies, right? What I just explained about the low barrier activity, I hope you understood it, but someone else may not understand the value of a regular photo walk or Zoom call. So you need to explain it. Then you need to accept that even after you explained everything, not everyone may share the interest in this project. Other people may have other priorities. Some people may be motivated by other things entirely. For example, I know an editor who cares deeply about snails, right? The animal. And that's all they care about. They want to improve the documentation on Wikipedia of snails and on commons, of pictures of snails. That's what they care about. This person will never be motivated to write about airplanes or mathematics or to do, I don't know, a partnership program with a museum of archaeology, okay? They care about snails, and that's fine, you know, they're contributing about snails, and that's it. I cannot motivate them to do other things. I can try, but I have to accept that some people will remain focused on what they want to do, and that's okay. And here's the crucial bit. If you cannot find enough volunteers to do what you want, you may need to change your plan. You may need to come to the conclusion, you know what? It's just me and one other person, and we cannot possibly execute a content partnership with this major museum when it's just the two of us. If nobody will show up, if nobody will be part of the volunteer team, we cannot pursue this partnership this year. We may have to wait. And if you are an organizer or a leader of your group, you need to really try to go with the energy, try to go with what your volunteer base does care about, what does motivate them. Maybe do it this year and build a volunteer base for next year, right? In time, you can gather around you more people who are interested in your original plan. But this last bit is very important. I have seen organizers be super locked into what they thought was the thing to do and really alienating the volunteers around them. And that's a shame, right? If you are with a group, you need to really be receptive to what motivates the group currently. Okay, so to summarize these principles of retaining newbies, we are open to everyone. Everyone is welcome to come and contribute on the wiki, but not everyone will be interested to begin with, and not everyone who is interested will manage to adapt to our norms, and that's okay. Again, I'm emphasizing we shouldn't hang on to these people who are not suited to the wiki, or the wiki is not suited to them. We should not hang on to them no matter what. We should let go and look for other people who are, for whom it would be a good fit, right? This is one of the biggest mistakes I see people doing, is that they feel, oh, this is the person who showed up to my training, so this is the person I must turn into an editor, even if this person refuses to care about copyright, for example. No, let go, move on, look for other people. We want to match skills and motivations to roles and tasks. We want to make sure that people are working on things that motivate them, things that they find rewarding, and to not frustrate people by forcing them to do something they don't want. And most importantly, remember the core logic here. The newbies who came anyway, people who started editing on their own, are people who are easier to keep because they're already there. They've already made the first step. They're much more likely to be retained than people who are completely random general public members who may well not be interested at all. So doing better at retaining the newbies that already show up on the wikis is the biggest and easiest way to increase your volunteer base. I'll say one or two words about outreach, and then we'll take a quick break to let our translators catch their breath. So I mentioned that outreach is the part you know, right? Doing editing workshops, etc. That's something most of us have been involved in one way or another. So it's not the subject of this session, but I will say that remember all the different motivating factors we mentioned? Each of these motivating factors can be the basis to derive a specific strategy for outreach. So if I am going to do outreach, and I want to capture the interest of people who are motivated, for example, by sustainability and are worried about climate change, I can design outreach that would appeal to them. That's completely different outreach than the kind of outreach I would design if I want to recruit librarians, for example. They care about different things. They speak a different language. They're motivated by different things. They're concerned about different things. So think about those motivations if you are doing outreach. Think about whom are you trying to motivate and what would actually motivate them, and try to customize your materials. And ideally, you do outreach to specific audiences. Because of this second bullet here, this is something we've known for a long time. I remember mentioning it in a keynote at Wikimania Hong Kong in 2013, 10 years ago. Single session general audience outreach doesn't work broadly, right? Just saying, hey, come learn about Wikipedia in a single session. Whoever wants to come shows up. Generally, that doesn't work. What do I mean by doesn't work? I mean the retention, the number of people who will actually start and stay editing on the wiki is going to be extremely, extremely low, right? Probably less than 1%. So I stress these two components: single session, general audience. If you change even one of them, your chances go up, right? If you do multi-session general audience outreach, right? If you offer a course of 3 or 5 sessions, the chances of retaining people go way up. And if you do even a single session, but to a specific audience, like librarians or graduate students in biology, or any specific audience where there's a common denominator for the people you are addressing, the chances of retaining them go way up, especially if you customize your outreach material to the interests and motivations of those people. Another tip I can give you about outreach is that sparking interest, right? Getting people to pay attention and to go, this may be interesting. That's the easy part. Because Wikipedia, after all, is a beloved thing. Most people use it. Most people who use it love it, or at least have a general positive feeling about it. So, people are likely to be interested to learn a bit or learn a bit more about Wikipedia. Sparking that interest is easy, but supporting a newbie through everything it would take to actually integrate on the project, to learn the norms, to face setbacks, that's the hard part. So if you're only doing a quick session, you're sparking people's interest, and then you say, go on the wiki and edit, and you're not there to support them, and you're not providing them with some channel to get help, and importantly, a channel that they would be comfortable with. For example, many people expect an instant messaging channel, right? Like a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group or whatever, Telegram, and find talk pages unacceptable for getting support. If you tell them, yeah, just go on the wiki and ask, most people won't. So that's the hard part. And I want to encourage you to experiment, because I don't have all the answers. Nobody else has all the answers. Your context may be different in your country, in your language, with the audience that you're trying to recruit. Experiment, change things, measure things, and try to find what works better and what less. Don't just repeat, the same workshop that didn't work the first 3 times. Don't repeat it for the 4th time. And a bit of good news, very soon, the end of this calendar year should have core training modules that are being developed by the Wikimedia Foundation as part of a project called the Africa Growth Pilot. These are going to be high quality structured modules on covering everything I talked about here, from the very basic preparation for contribution, what are the attitudes you need to adopt, how to face setbacks, the fact that people won't necessarily be willing to have a face-to-face with you, all these psychological and attitudinal aspects of contributing, through the fact that there are many ways to contribute beyond writing articles, and on to core policies like neutral point of view and verifiability. So these are going to be 4 modules that are going to be prepared by the pilot team. Maybe some of you have already seen our public request for comments on those module outlines. If you haven't, you can look on Meta under Africa Growth Pilot, and I'll drop the link during the break. And those modules, I hope, will help you direct newbies to them. They're going to be better than what's existing right now. And they're also going to be translatable so that you can translate and adapt them to your wiki, your language. And we really hope that could make a difference in this support, right? In this beyond the first principles, like really walking people through, for example, neutral point of view, right? I have seen very often in outreach, people literally assert, just state, you need to write from a neutral point of view. That's it. And people, nod because, yeah, we understand Wikipedia should be neutral, but do they understand? Do they understand what our neutral point of view policy actually require? Are they trained in this? Nobody's born producing neutral point of view text, right? But I have often seen outreach literally just instruct people, be sure to be neutral, and not actually show them even one example. Here's a non-neutral sentence, and here's a neutral version of it. See this? This word is not neutral. Removing it makes the sentence neutral, right? Like literally several micro examples could make a big difference in helping people understand our policies. It's not enough to just say, be neutral, and it's certainly not enough to just give a link to the big complicated policy page on neutral point of view, because it's not designed for learners. It's not designed to teach neutral point of view to newbies. Okay, so again, that's not available right now, but will be available by the end of the year, and I hope it will be useful for everyone. And before we move to the third bit, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and you can also use it to ask questions in the chat if you like. Let's take a break starting now. I'm also going to catch up on the chat. Okay, we have some examples here. Oh, I'm just now seeing the comment about Dagbani. That's fantastic that you are able to see the growth in the community. Okay. And just in case, for those who joined later, here's the Etherpad link again. Thank you, everyone. I'm very glad to hear the appreciation, but you're going to make me blush. You don't want to see me blush, right? Okay. Has it been about 5 minutes? I think so, right? I hope everyone is
Couple more
back.
minutes, Asaf.
Couple more minutes? Okay. Okay. So I hope everyone is back, has had a chance to drink or take care of other needs, and we'll move right along. Remember, I was speaking about 3 main ways to increase our volunteer base. The first way being retaining more of the volunteers we get anyway. The second one being outreach, going out and looking for new volunteers. And the third, and no less important way, is reducing burnout, losing fewer volunteers. And again, I mentioned that the first method is often overlooked by people who are very focused on outreach. The third method is also often overlooked by people. A lot of people just treat burnout and people leaving the project as inevitable. And sometimes it is, right? For example, someone who was super active and then, I don't know, they were super active while they were in university, and now they graduated and they're super busy looking for a job, or they lost their access because they had internet access through the university and now they don't. There's not much we can do about that. That's a change in life circumstances, or maybe they had twins and now they're super busy with childcare. All of this is not something we, the rest of the community, can do much about. But there's a lot of more motivational or personal emotional welfare considerations that we can do something about. And that's why I'm talking about reducing burnout, right? There's no way for us to prevent people having twins, but we can do more about reducing burnout, right? Reducing the sense that, you know what, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore, or I can't do this anymore, I can't take this anymore, that's something we can do something about. So what demotivates volunteers? What burns them out? And it may not surprise you that I will do the same thing and turn the question onto you. What demotivates you? What burns you out or burned you out? I mean, you're still around, so maybe you're not completely burnt out, but what has burned you out in the past? What do you find demotivating, frustrating to do on Wiki? You're welcome to share some examples on the chat or to just unmute and speak them. And again, I will share some that I have collected over the years. So let's see what people share. Others' frustration, that's interesting. So we can get frustrated by other people expressing frustration or by seeing how they're frustrated. When you have a tough job, may make you not want to sit in front of the computer after you sat all day in front of the computer. That's very understandable. The behavior of others can frustrate us. The lack of appreciation can frustrate us. Okay, so let's take a look at some demotivating factors. I'm going to read them out. You know what? And I would like you, at the bottom of your screen, you have the reactions. I want you to press the thumbs up reaction whenever I mention something that you have felt. Okay? So, endless circular discussions. Is that something that has frustrated you in the past? I have heard this from many, many people. Indifference and lack of collaboration. So, for example, the board or the leadership of the group proposes, let's do something X, and then nobody responds, nobody cooperates, and they end up being the only people doing it. That's something that people often find frustrating and eventually burn out, right? Because eventually they get sick of being the only ones who care, the only ones who carry some burden. Feeling unappreciated, feeling taken for granted, lack of feedback, we've already mentioned this. Being criticized by people who aren't helping themselves or who aren't working themselves, right? That can be a frustrating experience where you do something, you make an effort, and then people who have not made an effort criticize you or have things to say about how you're doing it wrong, etc. Very easily demotivating, can very easily burn you out. Bureaucracy in real life. Some of the work we do may involve paperwork or accounting, writing reports for the foundation. That can be demotivating. Another thing that has been demotivating for some people is the lack of consensus on core policies. I already mentioned copyright as an issue. There are some countries and some cultures where, as I mentioned, copyright isn't really a thing. And everybody's used to not caring about copyright. And then the people who are trying to lead the group or are trying to enforce copyright on the projects, because you have to, are frustrated because other people tell them, who cares? Why are you making such a thing? Why are you deleting this file? It's such a nice picture. You know, that can be very frustrating. Conflict on Wiki can be very frustrating, can involve emotional labor, and emotional labor eventually burns people out. Some of you may have heard me give another talk about conflict, in which I say conflict is a fact of human life. It's unavoidable. When humans are in groups, they have conflict. But the question is how you have the conflict, right? And how long, right? Quite a little bit different from being unappreciated is feeling unheard. And this is, again, a universal about the human animal. People want to be heard, and not just be heard, they want to feel heard, right? They want to have the sense that they were heard. And we all know on the wiki, for example, it's very difficult to actually feel heard, right? How can you feel heard on a wiki? When do you know that you were heard on a wiki? Only when people respond to you, right? Or take action based on what you wrote. Because when we write something on a talk page, in fact, maybe 100 people read it and heard us, maybe, but we won't feel heard, right? We won't have the sense we were heard if none of them responds. And our comment is just there. How can I know that 100 people have read it and nodded and agreed with me, right? That can be frustrating. And sometimes it's not just about not receiving responses. Sometimes it's about literally being denied a voice. There are some communities that have authoritarian structures, that have concepts like senior Wikipedians, which is a term I really dislike. And those senior Wikipedians are trying to discourage non-senior Wikipedians from expressing an opinion. That can be very frustrating. Having to work with unmotivated people is itself very demotivating. Some of you may have felt that. A good example is an education program where you are maybe working with students who were assigned this task and they just want to get their grade, but they're not really motivated by Wikipedia. Of course, very often students love editing on Wikipedia, but I'm talking about those students who are only doing it for the grade and who are, you know, they really don't care about the quality. They really don't want to interact with you. They don't want to learn the rules. That can be demotivating, right? Having to deal with people who clearly don't want to be there, don't want to be doing this, can be very demotivating. Repetitive labor can be demotivating, right? If you are organizing something like a photo competition and you get 20,000 images, that's amazing, but it's also 20,000 pieces of work, right? Someone has to go through them and, you know, make sure they're all legitimate and check copyright, etc. That's a lot of work suddenly. A very common problem is not daring to delegate, right? We have some work, we would like other people to do it or to help with it, but we don't dare to delegate it, to share it, or to hand it off to someone else. It's called the delegation trap. And patrolling can give burnout, right? People who have to deal constantly with spam and promotional articles, etc., can get burnt out. And we see this on wikis a lot. So again, this was just a selection of demotivating factors, and I saw a lot of thumbs up here. So clearly I've touched a few nerves. I've addressed some things that you also felt. I want to suggest to you that each of these demotivating factors can be treated as a problem, as a challenge for you to work on as a community. Not all at once, but you can do something about each of them. You can identify the ones that are the most pressing in your community. What is causing your community, your peers and your user group, etc., most burnout? And you can maybe do a survey, maybe find out, right? Even just ask on the chat if you have a group chat or something. Just ask what is most frustrating to you, and then try to address that. Try to look for ways you can act on that primary demotivating factor. And here are some examples and details. So we've already discussed appreciation a fair amount, and not just on Wiki, and not just in person, but also, for example, when you're tweeting or doing press releases, or you can appreciate other people. When you're, for example, saying, "Hey, we had a Wiki Loves Food competition, and here are the winning photos," that's great. But if you also include, "Thank you to the members of the jury, A, B, and C, who have gone through all these, 5,000 photos, and thank you to this person who helped with the bot for uploading," etc., etc. Just use this opportunity to appreciate people, can make a world of a difference. When you have an opportunity to give an interview, again, even if person X is giving the interview, person X can give credit, can mention the work of person Y and person Z, right? Again, it's just a mental shift, right? To remember to keep appreciating colleagues, other members, when you have a chance, whenever you have a chance, in writing, in speaking, etc. And I mentioned the delegation trap. What is the delegation trap? It's the tension between wanting help or wanting to give a task away, but also worrying that other people won't do a good job or won't do as good a job as you could do, right? And why is it a trap? Because the pattern that repeats itself is, I would like to give this to X to do, but X won't do such a good job, or I don't trust X to know all the details. It's just easier to do it myself, right? I'm just going to do it myself this time. And that's this time and next time and the next time after that, right? That's the delegation trap. If you don't invest effort in enabling other people to take away some of your tasks, they will never be ready, right? Or maybe they are already ready and you just don't realize it or recognize it, and you're not even trying. So that is the delegation trap. And one of the ways to break out of this delegation trap is simply to ask for help. Literally say, hey, folks, I need to write the grant report for the foundation, and I really could use some help. I'm going to still do it, but if anyone wants to help me, I would really appreciate it. And see who shows up, see who answers. Maybe someone you didn't think of is actually ready to help you, but wouldn't know if you didn't ask. Another important thing is to face issues and not repress them, not sweep them under the rug, right? If there's an issue in your group, if there's tension, if there's conflict, address it. Don't let it fester. Don't let it develop, right? And when you need help, ask for it. You should also try to match skills to roles. We've already mentioned this, right? Try to make sure volunteers work on things they're able to do and that they want to do, but also be flexible and let people switch, let people experiment. Don't lock people into this one thing because that's the thing they've always been doing, right? And again, I've seen this very often in user groups. For example, it was time to write a grant report, and everybody in the user group immediately turned their gaze to the person who wrote the grant report the last year. They just assumed that she would do it this time as well. Why? Why did they assume that? Someone is providing art on our slides. Why did they assume that this person would do it? Just by inertia, She wrote the grant report last year and the year before that, so she's going to do it again, right? We all expect her to do it again. We're all projecting the expectation onto this person, but maybe this person doesn't want to write the grant report again, or maybe she would really appreciate help writing the grant report. So try not to lock people into things, even if the rest of the group would really like them to take care of it. Offer help. And I want to share a quick story that was really amazing. I was in India a few years ago, and I was talking about this, about matching roles to skills and how you can share and delegate. And I gave people an exercise, people in this community, one of the Indian communities. I gave them an exercise. I told them, take a piece of paper and write down the roles that you currently have. What are the things you do in Wikimedia, right? Write articles, I organize events, I take care of press releases, whatever you do, write it on a piece of paper. Then below that, second question, write the roles that you would like to fill. Things you're not doing right now, but that you would like to start doing or to do eventually. And then the third question, what is keeping you from taking these roles that you put in question number 2? Why aren't you doing these other things that you said you want to do? It's a really interesting exercise, and I encourage you all to do this exercise with your groups. The reason I think it's an interesting exercise is what happened in that room in India. Everybody started filling out the answers, and we did a go around, everybody was sharing their answers, and people said, I write articles, I upload photos to Commons, etc., etc. And one person said, I organize events, I do outreach, I organize the conference. And what they said in what role they would like to do was, I would like to be an attendee at an event. You know, show up to an event just as one of the attendees, not be an organizer for a change. That was the role they wanted, right? They have been organizing events, and the role they wanted was to just show up, you know, and enjoy an event and not be organizing it. And amazingly, I did not plan this, I could not have planned this, but amazingly, the person next to this person was reading their answers, and they said, I write articles and I upload photos. And then question number 2, I would like to organize events. That's a role that they wanted to have. And then question number 3, why aren't you organizing events? And their answer, the second person's answer was, well, all the events are organized by that person. Do you see? It was just an amazing, I could not have planned it better, in that room demonstration of how that person wanted to stop organizing events, wanted to give it over to someone else and actually enjoy just showing up to an event. And this other person was interested in organizing events, wanted to take over, but felt there's no room, there's no opportunity because this other person was always the organizer. And that they were stuck in that situation because they literally didn't communicate about it. They didn't know. It took this little workshop that I did there in the room for them to even realize, look at each other and go, wait, you want to organize and you want to stop organizing? That's amazing. So I hope that that example was clear, how this could really surface within your group, this desire for flexibility and how people may want to change roles to do other things, etc. Relatedly, what if we just don't have some skills, so we cannot delegate? What if we have, you know, one person who knows how to write bots, right, automated scripts, and that person would love to delegate, but there's literally no one else to delegate to. There's no one else who can do the work. What do we do about it? What can we do about it? So we can build skills in the team. It won't work immediately, but it's a medium-term investment, right? You can teach skills. You can teach bot writing. You can also teach soft skills, not technical skills. Not everyone is a born charismatic speaker or a born report writer, etc. But anyone can be taught at least some basic skills, some competence in public speaking, in partnership building. By the way, these links on the slide will take you to existing trainings on Wikilearn, the learning platform, about these things. So if you feel, well, I don't know the first thing about partnership building, there's a course waiting for you. Some people on the call have even taken that course. If you don't know how to approach public speaking and you're terrified by it, by the way, the #1 fear of human beings, just the most quoted, the most cited thing most people say scares them is public speaking. That's kind of amazing, right? That's the #1 thing, more than spiders, more than injections, more than other things people are scared of, public speaking. So we have training on that as well. Again, it may not turn everyone into a superstar speaker, but it can help you avoid some newbie mistakes. It can give you basic confidence, and you can invest as an organizer, as a leader. You can encourage people in your group to take these courses, to acquire these skills. You can also provide specific training for your group from some local training company or service. And that's the kind of thing that the foundation generally wants to support. You can include it in a grant proposal from the foundation. If you identify a need and you say, you know what, nobody here can handle, I don't know, media relations. Nobody knows how to do a press release, how to give an interview. We really need some training on that. Put it into your grant proposal and discuss it with your grant officer, and the foundation can probably support that for you. And most importantly, mentorship, especially for those cases where there's this one person who knows how to do something. That one person would do well to invest in training people around them. Among other things, among other reasons, so that they can eventually delegate to people. And mentorship is really helpful because it's a sort of low effort way of training, right? Just bring them along, right? If you want to train people on public speaking, just invite them to the next time you're doing public speaking so that they can hear and they can watch you and they can listen for the pace and see how you take questions and see how you deal with time limitations or the fact that the slides don't work or something, right? Give them the confidence literally by letting them watch and then ask you questions, etc. Right? This sort of apprenticeship mode or mentorship can really do wonders for your group. And again, it takes some active attention. You need to really remember to pay attention to this and to deliberately invite people. Remember the example I gave from the Indian volunteers, right? People literally won't ask because they will assume that it's not for them. They will assume, oh, this is the person who has always been speaking to the foundation, so they must be the only person the foundation wants to speak to. That's always false, by the way. The foundation is always happy to speak to absolutely every volunteer, right? But very often there is this perception that, oh, you know, the person who has been doing grants last year must be the person who is doing grants this year. That is not the case. Okay, so at this point you're saying, well, Asaf, easier said than done. I mean, yeah, this all sounds like the right thing to do, but it's really hard. To which I say, I know, it is easier said than done. And yet these are the principles, these are the approaches that have worked for many other groups. And if you remember, I told you there's no magic trick. You need to do the work. But if you do this work, if you take these approaches, you will reduce burnout. You will increase the retention of newbies that are coming to you anyway. But it takes work. It takes emotional labor, emotional intelligence. You need to pay attention. You need to provide empathy, and you need to have patience. If some challenge looks completely intractable, completely impossible to you, see if you can break it up into more manageable pieces. For example, you want to run an education program, but we don't have enough volunteers to support an education program. Okay, let's put the education program aside and look at the problem of getting more volunteers, increasing our volunteer base, which is, you know, what we've been talking about this whole time. What if we adopt the idea of getting a regular meetup going, right? That's a lot easier than an education program, right? Can we do that at least? Can we get a regular meetup going, even an online meetup? That itself can help us increase our volunteer base. Can we gradually prepare volunteers so that we can approach an education program next year, right? That's what I mean by breaking things down into more manageable goals. And I want to say one last thing about volunteers and roles. Sometimes you assign someone to a role or they have taken on a role and they're not a good fit, right? Maybe someone said, I will take care of the, I don't know, the reporting or the money, and it turns out that they're very messy and they're not good at doing that. Or someone says, I will handle the media, and I don't know, they give very poor interviews, or they have trouble producing a written, you know, press release. Or they say, I will mentor newbies, and it turns out that they're actually very poor at articulating explanations. There can be all kinds of poor fits. I want to encourage you to do something about it, to not just let things go, okay, this person is a bad fit, but what are you going to do? They said they're going to take care of it. I want you to dare to discuss it. Bring it up in the group gently. Don't offend people, but gently look for ways to improve it. Try to express the fact that, you know what, I think we could be doing better in retaining our newbies, or I think this piece of communication was not as clear as it could have been. You can say something like, for example, how about we jointly edit the press release before it goes out so that we all have a chance to improve it, right? Or how about we do mentorship in groups of 2 from now on and not just 1? Again, look for ways to model better performance or better way to do the task. And you can even gently suggest to people, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Maybe there's a role that you would enjoy more, et cetera, et cetera. Try to find a way to unassign or decouple the bad fit in the group. And an extreme case of this is what's called founder syndrome. Some of you may know this, right? It's when the person who founded or started some group is staying in power or staying in leadership after they are no longer effective, or after the point where they actually become an obstacle, a problem. And this is a problem, again, in most human groups, and Wikimedia groups are no exception. I've been around for many years in the movement, and I have seen several quite severe cases of founder syndrome. So severe that in some cases, the founder of a group was also its downfall, right? Literally caused the group to sort of run aground and be disbanded because they became so difficult, so impossible. They started actually sabotaging the group. Again, these are extreme cases, but it can get there. And in other cases, it wasn't as extreme, but still people were hanging on to power, not delegating, insisting on doing everything their way, long after the group has actually grown, matured, wanted to come out from, under the wings of the founder and actually pursue other ideas, other approaches. It's often difficult for the people who feel, this is my baby, I created it, I built it up from nothing. It's often psychologically difficult for people to let go, right? And again, the group needs to help them. Sometimes you need to help people realize the moment has come for you to let others lead. The moment has come for you to include more people in decision-making. And I don't want to go into it too much, but for those of you who are in groups that have staff, if you have a paid position in your group, you probably know that can create tension between what the staff person does and what volunteers do. There can be all kinds of tensions around managing expectations, around just resentment, why is this person paid and I'm not, or I wanted this position and I wasn't selected, etc. That can create some tension. That can affect motivation. But I don't want to go into that. I want to leave time for questions. So I want to conclude and then have questions and discussion. The thing I want to remind you of, the thing I want you to take away the most, is that outreach is the standard approach to gaining volunteers, but it's not the only one, and it's not the best one. Much improvement is possible in retaining those organic volunteers, the people who just show up on the project that we don't pay enough attention to. And I would like everyone listening here to come out with the decision, I am going to pay attention to this now. I'm not only going to focus on outreach. I'm going to make sure people who just wander onto the wiki are received better, get better help, get better support, etc. And in reducing the number and the frequency of people burning out. Again, leaving aside the unavoidable life situation changes and focusing on the people who are rage quitting, people who are offended and quit, people who are burnt out and quit, that we can reduce. We can do something about it. And preventing burnout is always easier than curing burnout, right? Once someone is burnt out, sometimes it's for good, there's nothing you can do to bring them back. And other times it's just a period and they can come back. But preventing the burnout in advance is always preferable. So that is, again, my main message. And now I would like to give time for discussion, take questions. I think we have a fair amount of time left. And I would also invite you to consider what you want to really take away and implement in your own communities. I would love to hear if anything I said here has inspired you, given you ideas, if you would like to share them, and the context in your community for why this particular idea or this particular activity of all the things that I mentioned is what you're going to try and implement. But before we do that sharing, any questions, any points of discussion you want to share? And I remind you, you can ask questions in other languages in the translation channels, and they will be translated for me so I can answer.
Someone is raised. Okay, yeah.
I think we have 6 questions in the ETA part that was able to put together. The first one says, okay, I think it was on the thank you button. Where can we find the thank you button on Wikipedia? But I think it's been answered severally in the chat.
Sorry, I can't make out what you're saying. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the first question is, where do you find the thank you button on the wikis? And is it for only admins of the wiki? I think there's been an answer to that in the chat.
Yes. Thank you for the question. I'm going to demonstrate. So the question is, where can we find the thank you button on the wiki? Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show, I'm going to share my screen again. And looking at Wikipedia, we can just go to an article, any article. For example, this article today, Margaret Murray, the featured article today, and click the View History button, this button here, next to the Edit button. We click View History, and we can see the history of edits. If you don't know this screen, then you should. And it's a bit of a busy screen, but I want to draw your attention to this bit here, this bit. This is the thank button. See it here? I'm highlighting it. Next to every edit, there is a thank you button. And we can, for example, go to the oldest edit here, all the way back to 2001. This article was started by some IP address in 2001. So there's probably relatively little point in thanking them. But this person has significantly expanded it. You can see they added 3,900 bytes, expanded and improved. And we can just click the thank button right here. Click the thank button. It changes into this question, publicly send thanks. And we say, yes, let's thank this person. That's it. You see now that the button has changed to thanked. Okay, so now this person has been thanked. It's as easy as that. You don't have to be an admin. You can do this for any edit and any change. You can also thank people for edits they have done on a diff. So if we look at the watch list, for example, let's go to Meta. And here on Meta, you can see that some people have made edits to pages I care about. I'm going to find those edits. Here we go. See, this edit, for example, we can look at the diff. Okay, we have here a response from Tochi, who said, great, to something I have said. And I can simply, looking at this one tiny diff, I can click the thank button here, right here, and press thank again, and that's it. I have thanked her for this edit. So this is the other way to find the thank button. When you're looking at a particular diff, at a particular edit, you can thank people. Next question.
Yeah, so I think we have a few hands up here. Mohammed, if you have a question, you can.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. And I must say, I've indicated that on the comments section already, that this particular session is one of my best sessions since I joined the Wikimedia movement. I've learned so many things, so many complex things. Things that looked complicated to me have been explained to my understanding. And I'm now getting to understand why the Dagbani Wikimedians user group, our communities are growing steadily, because some of these guidelines or some of these recommendations made by Asaf has been employed by our dynamic executive director. I used to have a lot of challenges with him on so many things, but I'm now getting the understanding why he used to take certain decisions or does certain things. In fact, I've learned so much. And I've been assigned to a community which is made up of a total newbies altogether. None of them knew Wikipedia, anything about Wikipedia before. And then I've been guided, he's been providing guidance to me, and the community is growing, the Dagar Wikimedia community, which is in the incubator now. And I want to say that what I have learned here, I'm going to you put that into practice with the community, and very soon you get to hear about Dagar Wikimedia community, just as the Dagar Wikimedian user group is being heard. I was so much happy to see the growth charts highlighted during the, in the beginning of this session when Asaf projected it. I don't know how to assess that platform to check the growth of our communities, and I'm sure the slides will be shared later where we can get to practice.
On the slide with the graph, there's the URL for the stats page.
Sorry?
The URL for the stats is on the slide with the stats, so you will be able to access it.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I'm very much grateful.
Yeah, so thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much.
Thank you very much for that. And I want to encourage you to exercise thanks. So you mentioned that you are now appreciating the practices of your executive director. Make sure they know this. Tell this to your executive director. Thank them for the practices that have built the community so that they know.
So I think the next person is Esther. You can ask a question. Esther, your hand is up. Can you ask your question now?
Voy a hablar en español. ¿Me podréis traducir?
Yes.
Gracias.
Esther, Esther, un segundo. For those of you who are listening to Esther in Spanish, please switch to the English channel. You can do so in where it says more and 3 buttons or a globe. You switch to English and you can hear Esther in English. So let's just leave a few seconds to do that. Or in French or Arabic or Portuguese. Thank you, Esther. Perdón. Adelante.
Muchas gracias. Uno de los motivos que más nos queman a las personas que nos dedicamos a buscar voluntarios y a formarlos es cómo lidiar con la comunidad, cómo estos editores seniors muerden al novato y desaniman. Entonces, también me gustaría recibir consejos sobre cómo lidiar, cómo formar también a esta comunidad para que se sienta motivada. Porque, por ejemplo, yo trabajo mucho en la Wikipedia catalana. Parece que los antiguos no quieran recibir nuevos porque se han olvidado de cuando ellos eran novatos, los errores que cometían, y ahora que aparezcan nuevas personas o nuevos editores, les da un trabajo que mejor expulsarlos. Esta es la sensación que yo tengo. Entonces la pregunta es, ¿cómo lidiar también con la comunidad para educarla?
Yeah, thank you. That's a big question, as Tomas is saying in the chat. It's one of the hardest questions. I can offer a brief answer. It's really the topic for a whole discussion. But briefly, I will say what you can do as an organizer, as someone interested in these newbies or maybe involved with a program that brought these newbies, what you can do is try to shift the burden of the tension or conflict with the old-timers, senior Wikipedians who are maybe disapproving or being too harsh. Try to shift the burden from those newbies to you, to the organizers. In other words, see if you can have some kind of negotiation, some kind of discussion between the organizers or the people doing outreach, working with newbies, and that older core or whatever, the group that is resistant. See if you can have a discussion that says, look, we're bringing in newbies, we're doing a program, gender gap or whatever the program is, and they are newbies, they're going to make mistakes. How can we maximize the chances that we can turn them eventually into constructive, skilled Wikipedians? For example, can we agree that we put a little template on articles that these newbies are editing that say this article is being edited by a new user who's part of this project with a link to the project page. If this user has made a mistake, they're really willing to learn, please just kindly point it out, or something like that. Just offering this reminder that, hey, these are newbies, they're still learning, etc., and trying to get the older or more resistant group to agree to some modus vivendi, right? To some, okay, let's agree we can do it this way, and then we won't just very harshly come down on them and revert their edits, etc. That can go a long way. And I've seen this work in some communities where there was a kind of negotiated mode, and then people were treating newbies better. So that's my one tip that I can offer, briefly. But yeah, there's a whole art to this, and it is a complex issue. Let's take other questions.
Yeah, so I think Bayo has a hand up, so we'll take her, and then we'll come to also Bronon and Yao.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much, Asaf, for the insightful presentation, and also to the organizers. So I just wanted to share on the first point, that is how to find these volunteers, and then focusing on the wiki site. I've actually been guilty of focusing more on the outreach part of getting volunteers. And I know one of our team members, that is the user Wikimedia, or Emmanuel, who is on this call. He was approached by Masli on the wiki platform. He has always been editing, but he didn't know about the wiki community. So Masli reached out to him and then asked if he knew anything about the wiki community in Ghana, and then invited him to come to one of our programs, which he did. And now Emmanuel is the program manager for Global Open Initiative Foundation. So I'm happy that we have this experience, and then you shared this. My challenge now will be how to actually find some of these people on the wiki site. And I'm wondering, is it by focusing on, let's say, people who edit articles related to Ghana, and then I can just try approaching them through their top pages? Yes, I wanted to find out that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question and the example of successful cultivation of volunteers. Yes, finding Wikipedians in your country around you is more difficult when you are contributing to a major global Wikipedia like English Wikipedia or French Wikipedia or Spanish Wikipedia, because of course, people may not be even in your country. Right. Whereas if you're contributing to the Estonian Wikipedia, it's very likely that any Estonian editor is in Estonia or at least from Estonia. So it is more of a challenge on English Wikipedia. People don't have to write where they're from on their user page, but many times they do. So one way to look for people is to look for those user boxes, that says this user is from Ghana, or this user is interested in Wiki Project Ghana. And again, you can be interested in Wiki Project Ghana and live in the United States, but still that gives you at least an initial group of people. The other thing you can do is, yes, look for people who are editing on the topics that are related to Ghana. And again, there may be an excellent editor from Ghana who is exclusively editing about jazz music, not anything specifically related to Ghana, and you will not find him that way. But again, just to begin cultivating the group around you, that's an easy way to find people who are likely to be from Ghana. But the best way really is to use what's called a geo notice, which is a banner, a site notice that is geolocated, that is limited to being shown only in Ghana. And you can request that, you or the user group or someone can request such a banner. You cannot just do it, yourself. You have to request and have admins do it. And you need to have a good, message. In order to be shown to, everybody who's editing from Ghana, you need to make sure that your message is very clear and targeted, and it's a banner. So it needs to be a short message that can link to some other page. So for example, you could start a page that says, hey, I want to get together a group of people editing in Ghana, or a group of people in this state in Ghana, or this, province, and prepare that page, and then ask for a geolocated site notice to be shown to attract people to that page. And again, that will be shown to people who are editing from an IP that is in Ghana. It won't tell you who those people are, but it will be shown to those people, and they can choose, to come and register on the page that you made. Okay, so that's a good way to, surface and discover people, or at least allow people to express interest by showing the message only to people from Ghana. And it's called a geo notice. It's documented on Meta. If you go to Meta and type geo notice, you will find some documentation on how to do it. Other questions?
Yeah, so also go on, and then we can take the question from you.
Oui, vous m'entendez? Bonjour.
Yes.
OK. En fait, moi, je veux partager mon expérience et puis après poser ma question. Il y a de cela pratiquement une année, j'ai commencé par développer une série d'activités me permettant à passer en fait dans les universités. Donc, à l'issue de ces rencontres avec les étudiants, j'arrivais mieux à leur parler de l'encyclopédie et tous les projets Wiki. Donc, financement ou pas financement, j'essaie d'anticiper, puis j'organise des activités de façon personnelle, même quand ce n'est pas financé. Et la première activité que j'ai organisée en mobilisant les jeunes, c'était d'écrire sur, et c'était d'enrichir le patrimoine musical du Bénin, c'est-à-dire les femmes qui ont marqué le monde musical du Bénin. Parce que nous connaissons très bien Angélique Kidjo et tout, mais bien avant Angélique Kidjo, il y a d'autres femmes qui ont réellement participé à la culture béninoise. Du coup, nous avons commencé par chercher ces femmes, créer leur Wikidata, et si on trouvait des sources, on arrivait à réaliser des ébauches. Donc, plusieurs jeunes sont entrés dans le mouvement et puis se sont intéressés parce que, comme c'est enrichi le patrimoine culturel du pays, plusieurs jeunes ont pris le goût. À la fin de cette activité que j'ai menée durant 1 mois et demi, pour ne pas démotiver tous ceux qui sont entrés, j'ai encore relancé autre activité. Et l'objectif, c'était de mettre sur la carte les arrondissements du Bénin qui ne sont pas encore sur Wiki, c'est-à-dire les arrondissements qui n'ont pas encore de page. Et plusieurs d'autres aussi se sont intéressés parce que plusieurs d'autres tapent sur Wikipédia et retrouvent que leur village n'est pas en fait sur la carte. Donc, plusieurs jeunes étudiants ont milité puis se sont insérés. Quelque temps après, j'ai voulu diversifier pour qu'on ne soit pas sur Wikipédia simplement. J'ai contacté Aristide, il est de la Côte d'Ivoire, afin qu'il me montre comment il arrive à faire du Wikicode, parce que personnellement, je ne fais pas de Wikicode. Aristide m'a montré comment on fait du Wikicode, mais je pense que durant cette formation, je n'ai pas bien suivi parce que avant de créer une page Wikicode, il fallait d'abord que l'auteur en question ait déjà une page Wikipédia. Donc, quand j'ai commencé avec, comment appelle-t-on, avec cette activité qui devait durer 2 semaines, et plusieurs jeunes ont créé de pages Wikicode pour les auteurs béninois qui n'ont pas encore de page Wikicode. Donc, nous avons vu plusieurs articles et plusieurs pages Wikicode rédigées dans la période qui sont supprimées, puis l'argument avancé, c'était que ces auteurs n'ont pas assez de renommée et l'argument en bas, c'était ces auteurs n'ont pas encore de page Wikipédia. Donc, c'est vrai que c'est décourageant, certes, mais en fait, c'est formateur parce que ça nous a permis de savoir que nécessairement, il faut que l'auteur ait une base énorme et avoir d'abord une page Wikipédia afin de pouvoir espérer créer son Wikicode. Maintenant, j'ai lancé ici au Bénin la journée africaine. Ça a encore suscité plusieurs personnes et l'objectif, c'était d'écrire sur les administrations béninoises. C'est là que le problème blesse maintenant parce que durant la période où nous avons écrit avec plusieurs bénévoles déjà et ceux que j'ai pu recueillir, nous avons écrit pratiquement près de 123 articles sur les arrondissements du Bénin. Là où le problème se pose maintenant, c'est que durant la période d'écriture de ces articles, nous sommes confrontés à une situation où plusieurs administrateurs de la langue francophone ont notifié qu'il y a déjà trop d'articles rédigés concernant les administrations et qu'il fallait mieux prendre le juste milieu. Du coup, plusieurs jeunes ont vu leur article supprimé et ont avancé l'argument que non, qu'ils ont pris le temps de se consacrer pour la rédaction de ces articles et que commence. Donc, c'est vrai que j'ai essayé de leur montrer que oui, que en fait, ce n'est pas eux qui décident de comment maintenir les articles, mais que c'est le mouvement qui décide, c'est les bénévoles qui décident. Mais de ne pas perdre courage, ces trucs. Maintenant, la question, là où je vais poser de questions type, c'est vrai que cette campagne, elle est terminée. Mais franchement, je dois avouer que à l'instant T, je n'ai plus du tout, je ne sais plus comment réfléchir afin d'attirer encore d'autres jeunes. Est-ce que c'est trouver encore autre type d'activité pour amener autres jeunes? D'autant plus que depuis pratiquement une année, j'ai commencé par travailler avec d'autres qui ne se retrouvent plus forcément dans des projets que j'essaie d'amener, par exemple Wiki Voyage, Wikicode. Certains veulent simplement rester sur Wikipédia. Alors, comment faire pour que ceux qui veulent simplement rester sur Wikipédia puissent continuer l'aventure, même sans campagne, même sans activité? C'est là le bas blesse en fait. Et du coup, je n'ai plus de moyens, je ne sais plus comment anticiper les choses. Je voudrais avoir des conseils. Merci.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Yes, I agree that campaigns, a theme, can often attract people. If you just say, come and contribute to free knowledge in French, that can motivate some people. Some people are motivated by the abstract idea, sharing knowledge, free culture, that's enough to motivate some people. But other people will be motivated by more concrete things like, let's make sure that women scientists are covered on French Wikipedia, or that every town in Benin has a good article about it. Some limited scope and achievable goal. I find that something between 50 and 100 topics is a good, good manageable list to work with, one that you can imagine completing, one that you can imagine achieving. And I want to draw your attention to a body of resources that my colleague Alex Stinson has been developing around campaigns. There's a course called Organizer Lab. There are materials and slides and things that are all about designing campaigns, picking topics, supporting materials. Maybe Alex could drop a few links in the chat. But I want to address the negative experience that you've had with, again, pushback, resistance from the French Wikipedia community, saying there are too many articles. That's the kind of thing that can happen. And ideally, when you're bringing newbies, you want to minimize the barriers, right? You want to pick things that are the most likely to succeed, the most likely to not encounter resistance, because the newbies are already having a challenge, right? They already have the difficulty of getting to know new norms, learn a new skill, technical skills, neutral point of view, all these other challenges. So adding the challenge of, for example, questionable notability is unnecessary. I mean, once they have more experience, they can start exploring notability issues and things that are maybe notable, maybe not, etc. But if you're designing an activity for newbies, you want to protect them from that. You want to minimize the chance that they will encounter these more difficult and more ambivalent conversations. One way to do that, if you still want to pursue this topic of administration in Benin, is to have a conversation, again, with the existing Wikipedia community, with the people who have resisted it last time, to have a discussion with them and say, look, I want to do another run of this program, but this time I want to make sure that we're not encountering so much resistance. Can we agree on a principle or a threshold, above which, we all agree an article should be written or is notable, right? Try to negotiate the parameters in advance so that when you're bringing the newbies and telling them, here, let's write articles about these topics, they are sort of pre-approved, right? You know in advance that they meet the criteria agreed by the community, right? And again, if that proves too difficult, pick a different theme, pick a different topic. So that's my quick tip for you. But again, I refer you to the whole body of knowledge around campaigns that already exists. I want to take other questions.
Could I add something to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I think one of the things we've learned is that most newcomers, if you give them all the rules all at once, they're going to be overwhelmed, right? And so your job as an organizer who has a group of people that you think can be retained is to expose them in small ways to different skills over and over and over and over again so that they get to practice in safe spaces, right? And this is why campaigns like One Love, One Ref and Wikipedia pages wanting photos tends to be better at helping people get more active because they're small edits, it's one skill you're teaching and you can fix that skill, right? If you throw someone at writing new Wikipedia articles in their beginning, it's hard to fix that skill because they could have like 20 problems with writing the article instead of one. So you don't know what you're training them about. And so doing that focus is really helpful. Dagbani Wikimedians did something similar, right? Where they narrowed, like, we're going to start with Wikidata skills because this is something we can do, right? And then they grew up and around that with other skills. And so kind of picking the small thing and staying focused on that and then growing the tactics around it is really important.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Ruby.
Okay, thank you so much, Asaf, for this insightful and wonderful presentation. And one of the things that I learned from your presentation has to do with frustration, because for the first time when I joined the Wikipedia training, they were using source editing. And when I got back home, it was really frustrating for me. And I almost gave up on this thing because I was like, I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder. But I think for the second training, I was introduced to the visual editing, which helped me to continue my journey in the Wikimedia movement. So talking about frustration, barriers are usually one of the things that deter a lot of newbies from continuing their journey in the community. And I have seen that a lot in our community, especially when it had to do with IP block. And so, but over the years, we've had an administrator who, like, not an administrator, but a community member who takes this usernames and then try to connect with an administrator to have them unblocked. Okay, so this is how we've been doing it or managing the situation over the years. But I think recently he tried to do that, and he said that administrator, it looks like they've created a new tool where you could request. The administrator was like, he should not bring these usernames again these newbies should go and use this tool to request for IP on block on their own. But even though it's a good tool, I love it, and I think it's perfect. But for someone who is just starting their journey, they might feel like, what is this? You're asking me to do an activity again. And we all know how volunteers are, especially if they are new. Okay, so this again, I see it as a great opportunity, especially for people who are experienced already. They can navigate their way. But this again is a barrier, okay, to them, because if they had to do it on their own, if they don't do it, that's the end of it, because they wouldn't come back, they wouldn't report to you and all of that. So I'm just looking at the pros and cons of this new tool, how someone should be able to also help in requesting for another person. And also talking about gender gap, we're also seeing a lot like that great disparity between editors who are male and female. We have very low representation of females. When we look on the dashboard, we are not able to tell who is like the gender gaps in contribution. How are there tools that can help us to understand the growth of the different genders on these Wikipedia platforms? And also talking about the statistics that you showed. The statistics that you showed shows us languages. For instance, we see Spanish growing, we see Akan growing. And these, for instance, for my community at Open Foundation West Africa, we do contribute on a variety of projects. Like Tree, Dagmani, we have contributors who contribute on Dagmani and all of these languages, and so on and so forth. Okay, we don't have like one language that we are contributing to. How do we assess our growth? Because we don't identify to just one language, but then there are several languages that our community are contributing. And these languages that we see here are contributed by different communities. Wikimedia Ghana can be contributing to Dagbani. Dagbani itself can be contributing to Dagbani. OFA can be contributing to Dagbani. So as a user group, how do we know if this contribution is from our user group, or to be able to assess our group, to be able to know whether we're doing well or we're not doing well? So those are some of the questions that I have for you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for these questions. I'll try to address a couple of the points you made about the difficulty newbies face when trying to get unblocked, if they were blocked, etc. And we know that sometimes people get blocked for their actions, and sometimes they get blocked because of shared IPs and not at all their fault, but they still have to deal with it somehow. That's an unfortunate, reality of the way IP addresses work in Africa, for example. It's not fair, it's not okay, but it's beyond our power to change at the moment. And what we can do is support people, right? We can just help them deal with it. We can explain to them, this wasn't your fault, or in this case, this was your fault. Look, you did this. That's against the rules. You should know this. Now you can request an unblock and follow the rules from now on. I also want to remind you of the point I made earlier. Some people won't accept the rules or won't accept the duty of paying attention, right? They will insist on being able to contribute without bothering with the rules. Those people will never successfully integrate on Wikipedia. You cannot survive on the project. You cannot have your edits just be accepted without the headache of the policies, right? They matter. You really do need to pay attention, and you do need to follow the rules. Eventually, you will have to internalize the rules. So yes, we can help newbies pay attention. We can help them understand the message that they got and say, hey, this is why it happened. Here's where you can request the unblock, right? But if they're blocked for, I don't know, the third time because they refuse to respect copyright, or because they were just pasting text from somewhere else, or because they were writing in a non-neutral promotional language for the third time, and they just refuse to adapt, to learn, there's a limit, right? There should be a limit to how often we help them and how much we advocate for them to get unblocked. If they're not willing to put in the effort, in the end, you have to give up on them, literally. And this is a thought that is difficult for many Wikimedians, because they feel, oh, but I've already put in effort into this newbie. There has to be a way to retain them. And my suggestion is no. there is a limit to how much we should invest in people, and your energy would be better spent on another newbie who is willing to accept our norms, right? You should not invest unlimited amounts of energy in absolutely everyone who started editing. It really should depend on how much effort they're willing to make. So again, there is the aspect of shared IPs. There are things that are not their fault. We should support newbies, but if they don't show any willingness to adapt, to put in effort from their side as well, there is a limit to how much we should spend supporting them. To the question, sorry. I have to turn off video for a second. To the question of the gender gap and gender statistics. Sorry. To the question of gender, it is difficult indeed to track the gender of people. They're not required to tell the wiki. They can specify it, but it's still not public information. Some people will let you know on their user boxes, etc. Others won't, and there's no easy way to just know the gender of a user. And so it is difficult to find out how many of your group or how many in a project are a certain gender. That is a challenge. And again, there is some work in the Gender Gap Task Force about ways to approximate it, to track it, but it's really mostly opt-in. It depends on people telling you and on people willing to have that information collected. And likewise, about languages, right? You have a lot of people contributing in other languages in your group. And yes, it is more of a challenge for you as a user group to sort of try and get a handle on all the impact your various members are doing. There's no single click solution you can have. You need to track the Dagbani Wikipedia on the one hand and English Wikipedia on the other. There is the basic tool, the program and events dashboard. Are you aware of it? Are you using it? That is a tool where you can list usernames and track their contributions even across different wikis. So if your user group has a list of usernames that are involved with the user group, that is a way you can get aggregate statistics on the contributions of your user group. I think that covers it. Let's take additional questions.
Yeah, so I think Yao is next.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, I was a bit late, so I don't really know what to discuss. So my concern is about I've been editing on Wikipedia for more than a year now, and I've realized you can't edit like titles of articles and stuff, and I think this causes more of duplicate and stuff. So you have to move the distance and tell why you move the article with a new title or so. So I was just thinking if maybe the interface can be changed to where like you can still edit the title. Maybe you type the wrong title, or maybe when someone gets to realize that the title is wrong and he or she wants to correct it, then he or she just correct it straight up, rather than like moving the article and all that. And I was just thinking about maybe this can also bring about vandalism and stuff. So I would like to suggest if maybe that right can be given to people who have edited on Wikipedia for maybe more than 1 year or have like experience and stuff, or maybe if you want to get that right, you just request for it, then they give it to you. But they will look at how experienced you are in editing Wikipedia. And I think to help rather than always moving, and like at times it's very, very stressful. And you see maybe a beginner or a new person who is new to Wikipedia, maybe he or she has seen a wrong title and wants to try to correct it, but he or she doesn't know, like doesn't have the experience on how to maybe, or how do I edit this thing? Maybe he or she can edit like other stuffs apart from the title. So he or she might be thinking, oh, So how am I going to edit this title? And Charlie, frustration and stuff. So I don't know if something can be done about it. Right.
Thank you for this
Thank you.
question. I understand and agree that it would make intuitive sense to just be able to edit the title like you edit the rest of the text. The reason it is not possible is technical. It is the way the wiki is built, the way the wiki works, is that the name of the page is its identifier. Unlike Wikidata, where you have a number identifier, in Wikipedia, the precise name of the page is the identifier of the page. And if you change it, it is now a different page, which means that links to that page have to be changed, et cetera, et cetera. And that is the reason it is not so easy to change a page's name, so that people do need to think more carefully about it. People do need to take deliberate action to change a page because it may break links. That is the reason it is not immediately editable. So it's partly social and partly technical, and it's not likely to change. The way Wikipedia works is unlikely to change, so it will probably remain a question of moving the page rather than in-place editing. However, the right to move a page is not difficult to get. You don't need to be an admin. You don't need to have a year's experience. I believe on most wikis, any auto-confirmed user can move a page, which means if your account is more than 4 days old and you've made a few edits, you can move a page. I'm also a little curious about why you think that is such a common need to move pages, to rename pages. If that is a super common need in your community, in a smaller wiki maybe, I guess you can make a banner on that small wiki that teaches people, hey, if you find a spelling mistake, I know that some languages have a non-standard orthography, so a lot of people may disagree about how to spell something. You can make a permanent little banner on your wiki that says, hey, if you disagree with the spelling or you want to change the spelling of a page name, use the move button, or link to a page explaining how to rename pages. Again, if it's a smaller wiki. If you're talking about English Wikipedia or one of the large wikis, it's not going to be explained, and it's just going to stay with the move button, and people will have to either discover it on their own or mention it on the talk page and say, hey, I think it's misspelled. How do I edit it? And people will respond, but there's no better solution I can think of. Next question.
So Renee, you can ask your question.
Ok, bonsoir tout le monde. Je vais parler en français. Je m'exprime plus en français, plus couramment, mais bon, l'anglais est ma seconde langue. J'irai tout doucement parce que il y a le traducteur.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Et voilà. Donc, ok. Donc, il y a, pour répondre à la thématique posée, il faudrait se positionner en tant que nouvel arrivant. Beaucoup interviennent dans le sens de l'organisateur ou bien de l'utilisateur expérimenté qu'ils sont aujourd'hui. Mais bon, pour répondre à la question de rétention, il faut déjà définir, en fait, il faut se revoir pour comprendre comment retenir des personnes, des participants. Il faut se revoir, en fait, à nos débuts, comment on a rejoint le mouvement, comment les premiers articles et les premières entrées, peut-être sur Wikidata, se passaient. Alors moi, pour mon expérience, j'ai mis pas mal de temps, voire des années, déjà pour contribuer sur des projets, mais j'étais plus basé sur l'aide, l'assistance dans l'organisation. Donc du coup, ça me prenait pas mal de temps pour accompagner dans ce sens-là. Le plus important n'est pas forcément de spécifier que les personnes vont contribuer. Il y a tellement de choses à faire. Des personnes peuvent en fait, le travail est diversifié. C'est vrai, c'est les contributions qui comptent, mais derrière les contributions, il y a pas mal de travail à faire avant. Donc, il faudrait peut-être trouver des moyens lors des recrutements des bénévoles de savoir leurs objectifs, premièrement, Deuxièmement, de savoir peut-être compétences qu'ils ont à donner dans le mouvement, parce que c'est une communauté à compétences diversifiées. Donc, voilà en fait quelques axes pour pouvoir retenir des bénévoles, quoi. Voilà, c'est ma contribution. Merci.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope I got all that, but I agree that having an idea about the motivations of the people you are encouraging or training or teaching or integrating, it would go a long way. So that's why a specialized audience makes sense, because you can make some assumptions about what they know, what they're interested in. And if you don't have that knowledge in advance, then just asking is a great way to also start. You know, if you have a workshop with a general audience or a workshop where you don't know enough about the people, you can literally start with a little exercise or an icebreaker, as some people like to call it, where you just get people to talk about what brings you here. What are you hoping to accomplish on Wikipedia or on Wikimedia projects in general? What motivates you? What do you most care about? And again, you will be surprised by what people will share. Very often it will be things that didn't occur to you that are motivating them to attend and to put in the effort. And the moment you know this, it's so much easier to connect. It's so much easier to as you teach, go, oh, and remember you said you want to promote whatever, right? Women's health. Here's how you do that. Here's how you find articles about women's health, and here's how you find the ones that need work. You know, once you have a hook, you have a way to address and touch on that person's motivation. It's so much easier to give them the help that they need. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
I think Alex wants to pass a comment, and then we can move on to your activity for us.
Yeah.
Alex, we are waiting to hear from you.
Okay. Me too. There is just problem that I want to be clarified on it. Concerning Wikimedia communities, which will be moved from incubator into a full Wikipedia page. Sometimes there will be some articles that were already created in the incubator page, but when it is being moved from incubator into the full Wikipedia page, you find it difficult to locate these articles in the full Wikipedia page. So I think there should be a little clarity there, so that Wikimedians will be able to access old articles that were already created in the incubator before transforming into a full Wikipedia page. That's my question. I'm Asilijo, Fancy Wikipedia community.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the issue that you are describing. Are you talking about an article that has been moved? The whole wiki is supposed to be moved from the incubator to its own Wikipedia, not a single article, right? So
yes,
all the wiki has been moved.
That were created in the incubator pages. Now the page is now a full Wikipedia page. So I think all those articles that were created in the incubator page should be transformed or should be moved into the full Wikipedia page.
And they haven't been moved?
Sorry?
Again, I'm not understanding the problem. The whole Fante Wikipedia was moved from incubator into its own wiki site, right?
Yes, please.
What is the problem? What articles are you not finding? I don't understand.
There were some articles that were created in the when the page was into the incubator, but they are difficult to be located in the full Wikipedia page now.
Why? Why are they more difficult to locate now?
Sometimes you will search, some might come and some might not come. That's why I'm complaining of that.
I need to understand what the problem is. They were, you put in a search term and it was found on the incubator and it's not found on the Wikipedia?
Yes, some are being found and some are not found.
Okay, that sounds like a bug, and I encourage you to report it using the Fabricator site. If you don't know what Fabricator is, this address, and it's basically a place, I put it in the chat, fabricator.wikimedia.org, and you can just create a new bug, a new task, and just say what you said here and give examples, right? Say, I'm looking for this term, I found it in the incubator, but I'm not finding it in Fante Wikipedia. Give a concrete example so that engineers can look into this problem. I really can't think why that would be the case. Okay.
All right, so Carlo wants to say something. So quickly, then we move to Alex and then we can take us.
Yeah.
Hi, I work in Peru. We organize Wikimedia activities and try to improve contents related to ecology, gender, and culture in Wikipedia in Spanish. So we try to recruit, try to make people that are interested in these issues and are activists in these issues to enter the Wikimedia world and try to contribute. And sometimes we encountered some opposition. For example, when we try to change the history of the Spanish conquistadores, which is a very, very important issue in the history of the Americas, some people with a lot of experience that have written good articles change the perspectives that put Spain or the Spain in the past in a bad position. So we enter or we have conflicts about this, changing the way Wikipedia has told the history of our culture, the history of our countries in a more extensive way, but there are editors that have constructed articles based on the lay knowledge about these events, and they try to change and block these changes. Eventually, we make them be present in the articles, but still it's a fight and it's a step-by-step process. And sometimes it happens in other Wikipedias. For example, coca leaves. Coca leaves are an important plant in the world, like tobacco, like cane sugar, like many other crops. And Peru exports coca leaves to the US, and Coca-Cola uses coca leaves in its ingredients to make this drink, soda drink, but not people are aware of this. And little by little, we have changed and informed about this in Wikipedia in English and Wikipedia in Spanish, but other Wikipedias still don't tell this story. So sometimes also we confront people that have like prejudices and have written us telling that not just because you are a woman or an indigenous leader, you are relevant for Wikipedia. And in the article that they are questioning, they are challenging, these women have won prizes from Rainforest Alliance in New York, have been invited, and of course they are relevant because of their having recognized beyond their country and beyond their area of work. So there are many things that have been created in the initial years of Wikipedia, made by people with a lot of digital skills, but not a deep knowledge about history or culture or economics. And now we have more people that have expert point of view, like more knowledge, that try to decolonize, diversify, include more perspectives. But still, it's an epistemological fight. It's a place where people are frustrated either in both ways. People that are trying to expand the different perspectives about these articles, and also the people that are defending the common materialistic historical point of view. So this is a sensitive problem, and it depends on where you are, what language are you speaking, and how you want to identify, how you identify yourself as a person that belongs to a culture, to a nation, and when suddenly you are challenged that your country, your culture has not done well in the past, that maybe you were from the US and like recently, there's a conflict between a park between Hiroshima and Hawaii, and people in Japan don't want to do this type of park because of the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It's not the same as the bombing of Pearl Harbor. There are two different things. So these things goes beyond the Spanish Wikipedia, goes between cultures, between histories, between memories. I believe that we have to bring memory back, all memories, because we are very disconnected to our memory, to our bodies, to our territory, to our sense of self. If we forget a part of it, we are going to repeat and repeat and repeat, and we are doing that. We are repeating history and creating a very problematic world, and this translates also to the Wikipedia world. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Nuanced perspective. I agree. It is a challenge. It is a tension that plays out on Wikipedia. Colonialism is not a thing of the past. Cultural colonialism is still certainly alive and well and with us. But I will say this, first of all, about competing narratives, right? The standard Spanish colonialist narrative versus indigenous narratives or local perspectives. That is an issue, as you say, not just in Spanish, not just in Latin America. And the general answer, right, the textbook answer for Wikipedia is that when there is a tension between narratives, the Wikipedia way is to transcend the argument and report about it, right? So not to pick sides, but to say, whereas the traditional Spanish view, or the encyclopedia, whatever, says this and this, and it is the conquest is described in this way. These other sources, or 20th century scholars have pointed out, blah blah blah, with other sources, right? So Wikipedia can provide both points of view, or 5 different points of view, as long as there are reliable sources supporting it, right? That is the standard Wikipedia answer, and I stress standard Wikipedia answer because, again, this is easier said than done. Very often, the people holding the traditional or colonial view will also question the sources that try to present another point of view, and there needs to be a kind of discussion about the validity of those sources. We don't have enough time to go into that right now, but if you want, I can point you to a talk I gave called "What Can We Learn from the Feminist Movement?", in which I was discussing, I just pasted it in the chat, it's a YouTube video of the talk, and it is discussing it from a point of view of gender and feminism, but really I'm looking at the historical feminist movement, not the gender gap in Wikipedia, and I offer some lessons for us as Wikimedians from the way the women's movement and the feminist movement have built legitimacy for their own sources, for women's history as a subject, for women's archives as a source. This is something that is relevant for indigenous knowledge as well, for indigenous history as well, anti-colonial efforts as well. At the same time, I want to point out that we need to stop short of bringing activism into Wikipedia. So we may be interested in, for example, indigenous rights activism or indigenous revisionism, or activism for fighting for the narrative being taught in schools, that sort of thing. That's something we can support as people. But on Wikipedia, we have to confine ourselves to discussing things in terms of reliable sources. We can argue about what is a reliable source, but the end result still needs to be encyclopedic prose, neutral point of view, right? Not advocacy prose. It shouldn't tell the reader what to think. It shouldn't tell the reader what is good. It should just tell the reader what is true, right? So that's just a little parenthetical remark that sometimes people who are really invested in activism and in fighting for things have difficulty adopting, Wikipedia's voice, right? That neutral voice that we need to speak in when we write prose on Wikipedia, and separate it from our political passions. But thank you. It is very complex, certainly not something for us to do in the final minutes of this session. But thank you for bringing it up. It's certainly one of the perennial challenges that face us as we try to document human culture and human history in these competing narratives. So thank you for that. In the final minutes we have, I did want to get some answers about what you're taking away from this session. Which of the various things we mentioned you feel is particularly relevant to your community? What are you actually going to start practicing following this session, and why? Like, how is it relevant in your context? I would love to hear some examples of that. Who wants to share? Anyone?
So just a question, Asaf. Did you want to also share like a practical exercise, or do we do that post the session?
This is the practical exercise.
Okay, thank you.
Exercise is basically asking each of you to think about everything we've said, all the various techniques and ideas, appreciation, thanks, matching roles to volunteer interests, designing for specific target audiences, reducing burnout, handling conflicts, everything we've mentioned in this talk. If you could pick one or two things that you personally are inspired by or are motivated to actually take and implement in your Wikimedia organizing work, in your community, in your group, and why that is the one you picked. Like, how is it especially relevant for your context? That would be great.
Yeah, Bayo, your hand is up. You can answer your question.
Hello. So just to share what I have learned and would like to take away. The first is also making good use of the wiki sites. As I shared earlier on, I've been focusing more on the outreach, and even with the outreach, it's more or less like a general one to everyone. But then I've learned that I have to make a tailor-made form of outreach to either consider a specific group of people or ensure that I'm training people in bits and not just dumping the whole idea of having to edit or create an article to actually be a contributor or a valuable contributor on Wiki. I also like the idea about using the band stars and also using the thank you feature on the platform. We currently had a contest to contribute content on Supreme Court cases, and I think we are going to start by actually giving a band star to participants who participated in the contest. And our team needs some form of just to say that I will try the suggestion that you gave, that is to write down some of the rules that they would like to take and then what is preventing them from actually doing that. And I hope that this will help us strategize as a team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Obi, your hands is up.
Okay, I would like to share a little of my experience with the Senior Citizens Network. When we started, we wanted to do a kind of outreach for the senior citizens, but along the line, this style of outreach did not really work for me. Why? Is because initially they didn't understand what Wikipedia is all about. And remember, we were talking about, I was focusing on senior citizens. So I decided to do a kind of calling people together with age, those are from 50 and above. So they now came together to find out what is going on, what we are supposed to do. Meanwhile, I had a project, so I used the age to bring them together. And when they came together, we now started discussing about the project. We did Wikipedia and Wikidata. But in the process of doing this, we had a lot of challenges with Wikipedia. So I now told them, don't bother about Wikipedia. Let's focus on Wikidata. Then as we are doing the Wikidata, I noticed that some of them are so keen, because part of the project on Wikidata is to write about personalities, climate change activists, and environmentalists. So, but along the line, I noticed that most of them prefer to snap pictures. And now said, okay, if that's what will work well for them, we'll change the project a little bit and, concentrate more on getting the pictures instead of doing the Wikipedia. And so if I had forced them, I know most of them would have left. They won't bother doing it. So because I didn't force them, I gave them a free hand to do whatever they want to do, but following the rules. So along the line, we had a kind of talk session after the project. We called them together and, motivated those that participated. We gave them gifts ranging from design crafts, Ankara materials, and some token. And it was this gesture that, they took it and now started spreading the gospel that there's a program called Wiki for Senior Citizens that if you're 50 years, you should come and join, that they learned a lot of things and they would like to continue. I equally carried out a kind of post survey to find out their challenges and if they would like to continue. And they say they would like to continue. And it really gave me an edge to continue. And we've been doing a whole lot since then. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this experience and this good example of how you need to work with the volunteers' energy and what interests them, and that there's more than one way to contribute to Wikimedia. We need to be wrapping up. Maybe we can get one final quick comment from René before we finish.
Merci de m'avoir donné la parole. Alors, je vais juste faire un retour d'expérience rapide sur l'expérience que nous avons eue au Cameroun, où à une époque, on avait un Wikimedien expérimenté qui faisait la ronde dans le pays. Et lorsque nous avons pris des responsabilités de l'idée d'accompagner le projet, nous avons responsabilisé des lits de région. Nous avons responsabilisé des personnes dans des régions, ce qui a fait en sorte que nous avions eu des leads régionaux et ça a beaucoup favorisé le fait ça a réduit les voyages, les déplacements en fait dans le pays. Donc, il est important de voir, lorsqu'on veut faire grandir une communauté, la régionalisation des compétences d'un point à un autre. Donc, voilà. Et aussi, j'aimerais ajouter que pour retenir des personnes, il est important de responsabiliser parce que au fil du compte, c'est bien d'avoir des compétences wikipédiennes, mais après, c'est comme en fait l'échelle de Maslow. Des personnes ne vont pas stagner à un niveau, elles vont vouloir passer à une autre étape. Et l'autre étape, c'est de motiver en responsabilisant des personnes qui qui veut bien s'engager dans la communauté pour que celle-ci puisse davantage s'épanouir dans le mouvement. Donc, merci.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this experience. And yes, working with people, giving them more and more responsibility, responding to their desire for more responsibility or for more skills is great. And by the way, you can use it as a motivator. So if someone tells you, I would like to organize events, but they are themselves very, very new, you could also tell them, look, you're too new to know what it takes to organize an event, but how about you work with me when I organize the next event, and you see and you learn, and then the next time you can co-organize and participate, right? I mean, you can literally turn the request, the motivation, into a learning plan, right? A development plan for a volunteer. Thank you for that. Bukola, do you want to wrap up? Any final comments from people? I hope this session was useful.
Of course. So it has really been an interesting session, and in fact very informative, because like we have seen a whole lot of comments in the chat box, and also like it has exposed us to so many new approaches that we could use to motivate and retain volunteers and even team members as well. So thank you so much, Asaf. This has really been a great learning. Even for me, at some point, I totally forgot I was hosting the session because I was so immersed in the discussion. So thank you so much. So right about now, we'll be sharing the in-session quick feedback. We know you really enjoyed this session, and would like you to kind of just evaluate what you think this session has been. Has it been very informative for you? Have you learned anything? Would like you to kindly complete the feedback, the quick feedback form that has been posted in the chat box by Jessica, and it's links to a Mentimeter. So please, like everyone on this call to kindly complete the feedback. And so that's about it. And yes, I know we really enjoyed this session. And also, before we go, while you're completing the quick feedback form, we'd like to take a group photo. I know it's a bit late in some places already, but then if you don't mind, you can kindly turn on your camera if you would like to be captured. Thank you. So, you can unmute your mic to speak if you want to say something, and it's an open virtual group photo, so you don't have to mute. Change your styles. Yeah, we want to see all those wiki styles. Yes, and please kindly ensure you complete the quick feedback form. It's very important to do that. So thank you all so much for staying on this call up until this time. I know if we want to keep talking, we can keep talking till midnight. Yes, but then it's a very interesting topic, and I would like that we try to apply all what we have learned, and because that's the only way we can actually improve on what we have been doing. So thank you all so much. And I don't know if Jessica has a few words while we take the screenshot, the snapshot.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank Bukola and Justice for facilitating. It's Bukola's first time as a Let's Connect working group member, so congratulations. And Asaf, thank you for that wonderful session. We'll be sharing the recording and hopefully in the different languages as well in our resources page. If a working group member can link in our resources page, they should be up there in maximum a week, and we'll be sending via email to everybody who officially registered to the session. And yeah, just please give us your feedback. It's very important for us to arrange the next sessions and think of new learning clinics. I see only 8 people have filled it out of 30 that are online.
Now before the Zoom closes, click the link and fill it out.
Thank you, Asaf. And yeah, open your mics. This is the point where we just say goodbye, and we, in the Let's Connect spirit, we connect and appreciate each other.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye, 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 bye.
Have to complete the feedback form before you leave.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. We heard your voice. Hey. Hello.
All right, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Hey.
Thanks so much, Bukola and Justice. I'll close it now, and yeah, we'll be in touch with the follow-up tasks. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care. Thank you. Justice, Jessica, Ruby, you're still on the call. Bye.
Bye. I'm trying to fill the survey, so I don't know.
Thank you.
Great. See you. Bye.